Mm, We're going to start the session. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of Filmabad. For those of you who might be new here, Filmabad is an incredible initiative founded by Sadan Khalid, and it's dedicated to giving young Pakistani filmmakers a hands-on experience with training and mentorship and industry exposure through sessions like this, and also having immersive bootcamp workshops. And Filmabad is helping to equip the next generation of storytellers in Pakistan and around the world with the skills and confidence they need to bring their visions to life. And today we are really honored to have with us a very special guest, Franco Sama. Franco is a prolific independent film producer with over 2 decades of experience in Hollywood, credited as executive producer on more than 25 feature films. He's known for championing emerging talent and for his ability to take projects from concepts to screen, navigating the often complex world of financing, distribution, and production. And his insight into both creative and business side of filmmaking has made him sought after mentor for filmmakers around the globe. So, Franco, it's a privilege to have you here with us, and I know our audience is eager to learn from your journey. So let's start things off. Franco, let's go back to the beginning. So you made about like more than 25 films as an executive producer and independent films. How was your experience with the first film you make? How difficult what was it? Was it easy? How did you start that journey?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. And to be truthful, to go back to the beginning, it would probably be useful for me to even go back a little bit before that to kind of explain like how I even ended up here. Uh, but and to answer your question, no, it wasn't easy, and it never is. The first film, but anyway, um, I actually landed Los Angeles in 1997, and I had just turned 40 years old. So if you're doing the math, that makes me 68 years old in October. So I say that because for some people, uh, they're starting later in their lives, a career, and I want to encourage people to know that you can do that in this industry, and I am living proof of that. But so the reason I just kind of wanted to go back before that is because I always knew when I was growing up, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, uh, that I was going to be somehow a part of this industry. Now, at 8 or 9 years old, obviously I had no concept of any of what that meant, right? And when I was 8 or 9 years old, we had only black and white television, and we only had 3 channels. Right, that's how long ago that was. And so growing up in Boston, in the United States, that was what I was used to. But I was enamored by television shows, particularly I love talk shows, and where most of my friends would be excited to see a movie star come out and be the guest on the talk show. I was more interested in the host, right? And that person's job. And I was also curious about, well, if I'm seeing this, right, because there's a camera on these people, what am I not seeing? Like what's going on back there? So that was kind of my curiosity, right? And so I tell people when I tell the story, I'm like, when I say I knew I was going to be in this business, it wasn't like a prayer or hope or a dream. It wasn't. It was a fact. Like I knew it. And I just didn't know how to access any of it, right? But it was in my heart. So that was all that really mattered. The seed had been planted that early on. Well, uh, based on what I just said earlier, as you can see, it took me a very long time to actually get there, right? I'm talking about from age 8 to age 40. Are you kidding? So I was 39 years old at the time. I was doing I had a company where I would travel all around the United States, or at least the eastern side of the states, and I would go into automobile car dealerships and that were failing, and I would turn them around and turn them into profit. And I had 90 days to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would leave and I would go to somewhere else. So I was traveling constantly, but I'd never been west. I'd only gone from the middle of the country east.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a lot of New York and whatnot. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I got to travel a lot and meet a lot of people, and I made money. It was great. So I was essentially an entrepreneur. But there was this thing inside of me, right? Well, one day I end up in Buffalo, New York, one of the coldest places on earth. And we ended up with a 22-inch blizzard of snow, and we couldn't go anywhere. And I sit in a coffee shop, and I'm like 39, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, what happened to that kid's dream, right? Where'd that go? So I literally pulled out what was then a yellow pad paper, and I wrote what I call my letter to God. And it was a pretty angry letter. You know, it was like, oh, what's going on? Oh, why am I stuck here? Like, what do you mean it's 22 inches of snow? Anyway, what it did is it prompted me to take some action. In those days, we didn't have Expedia. We had travel agents. And so I called my travel agent. Her name was Betty. And I said, book me a flight to California. Never had been here before, terrified out of my mind. And she did. And I showed up. And that was in March of 1997. And I was here for 2 weeks. And I scoped out the place. And I knew the minute I landed that this was going to be my home. And that was 29 years ago, 5 days ago, was my anniversary.
Wow.
And so I made it. I got here. And my goal was to be in the movie business, or in the entertainment business, I should say, by the time I was 40, because I had been 39. My birthday's in October, the 10th. I arrived here in August. So I didn't have much time if I was going to do something. And I ended up convincing somebody, a celebrity photographer, to let me be their publicist. Now, I didn't even know what a publicist did, but I knew that I'd be good at it. So I made a business card. I called myself a publicist. I convinced this guy to give me a job. He gave me the job. And I said to him, you don't have to pay me. Because remember, I told you I had a job where I would work for 90 days to turn a company into profit. So I used the philosophy, and I said to him, if I can't turn your company into profit in 90 days, you don't have to pay me. You can fire me. Just give me like $200 a week for food. That's what happened. Before I ever got anywhere near 90 days, the very first gig I got was a 6-page spread with Francis Ford Coppola at his Napa Valley estate. And then after that, I got a gig with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett when Jada was pregnant with Jaden. So that's how that was. He was in her belly when we did that event. And then the next event was Gary Oldman, who I left. If you guys have seen any of my work, I made a movie with, 18 years later or 17 years later. So I got off to a pretty good start, right? I got out here and all of a sudden this is what I'm doing. And I don't think it was a coincidence, because I feel like I was prepared for that. I had turned 40. I was in the industry. And yet I was competing with people much younger than myself, knew a lot more than I did, except what I had that they didn't have was 40 years of life experience. And I had transferable skills from my entrepreneurship that I could apply. So I bring all that up because I think it's important, at least in this particular case, that when I came into this business, unlike probably most of you guys, I didn't have these dreams of being a filmmaker. I'm not a creative. I'm not a writer. I didn't have a screenplay. I didn't have a story in my head. I didn't have anything. I was a businessman that wanted to be in this business, right? And when I got here, it took me 3 years. I did the publicity thing for 3 years to get my feet wet, but there was a tactic that worked, because being a publicist in Los Angeles got me into every single party. I was at every single event and every single party, just because I was a publicist. And that's how I got my network built. I started to build my network. And then I ended up spending a year at Paramount. on the lot there. I ended up spending a year at Universal Studios. I really started to get the groove, but I started to recognize the difference between the studio system and the independent. And I wasn't crazy about the studio system. I was more interested in the independent. So I decided that that was the route that I was going to take. That said, still didn't know what I wanted to do because I didn't know what any of this stuff was. And one day I walked into an office to have a meeting with a gentleman who was he was like an agent, maybe you're a manager. And while I was sitting in his office, he was on the phone, and I overheard the conversation. And I didn't want to be in the room. I was uncomfortable. The guy's having a business call, and I'm sitting there, and he's like, no, come in, sit. So I sat, and I just listened. Well, unbeknownst to me at that moment, it was going to literally be a life-changing, altering experience. Because what he was doing on that phone call was he was negotiating a movie deal contract for an A-list actress who shall be unnamed. And he was doing the deal. He was the executive producer of a film. And he was literally cutting the deal in front of me. And by the time he hung up, I couldn't even remember what I was even there for. I was so blown away because it was literally like an epiphany, like the skies opened up and the light came through and it went right through my body. And I had my answer. The one thing I now understand is I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know it was a job. I didn't know you get paid to do that. But whatever he was doing on that maybe 6, 7, 8 minute phone call utilized not only every skill set I had ever acquired, but every desire I ever had to use those skill sets, right? It was like the perfect storm. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of Anthony Robbins. Anthony Robbins is a motivational speaker here in the United States. Huge. I heard him once say at a seminar, find something you can be an expert in. And so for all those years, even though I was a publicist and having the time of my life, that wasn't it. And I was searching. What can I be an expert in? Well, that moment when I met that guy on that phone call, I knew that that was the thing I needed to be an expert. And when I found out that what was underneath that was called an executive producer, and that an executive producer is responsible for the money, and money was my entire 40-year previous background as an entrepreneur, it all came together. And I'm like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to become an expert in. And, I'm happy to say at this point, I'm able to say I am a film financing expert, right? And that is because I then had to kind of back into that and figure out now, how do I do that? Mm-hmm. So I met a gentleman, young man. His name was Jordan. He was an actor. He came to me because he wanted to make a movie, and his family was in the movie. He was from New York. His family was in the movie business, but they financed other people's films. And they had financed some pretty big major films that were actually in theaters at the time. This was in 2005. And he approached me. And he said, I want to make this movie. And then we started looking at our resources. This kid was like 19 and I was in my 40s. So I could have been his father. But he was smart and he was a go-getter. And I like that. So we came up with a plan. Why don't we start a company and then we can make a movie and then you can be the actor and then I can be the producer. So, that's what we did. And we went out and we raised the first round of money, $125,000. And that money allowed us to open up an office, which we did down at Studios, Sony Studios, not in Sony, but right near Sony. So we thought we were pretty cool because we were right near Sony. And we didn't know what we were doing. And we had to figure it out. So what I did know was that I didn't know what to do. That's what I knew. But I also knew that there were people who did. And I knew that we had access to funding potentially through his family. So what I did, I got on IMDb and I started researching, and I found producers, this one woman in particular, who had basically what I have now, right?
Mhm.
And I had nothing. And so I called her up. She was right in Beverly Hills, which was like 2 towns over. And I invited her to lunch. And I think I spent $300 on that lunch. But it was worth it because basically my deal with her was like, look, I have resources that I can provide you with that I think will help you with some of your projects, but I don't know what I'm doing. And you do. So if you will take me and my partner on and teach us in exchange for our relationships and give us the credits and give us the, all that. And that's what happened. So she did that. We learned the ropes. We made a bunch of films, small ones, a lot of horror back then, horror movies. Um, but in those days, that's what you did. You made a $250,000 horror movie and you sold it for $500,000. And by doing that, we were able to accumulate credits, started to get a little bit of a name for ourselves. We started to make money, and things started to progress until we decided we wanted to break away from horror and start doing some genre stuff. And we found a script that we really, really liked and we wanted to do. We got a director. We raised the money ourselves. That movie got made. It stars David Arquette and Vivica Fox.
Mhm.
And then right after that, we got an opportunity to do a movie called Tooth and Nail with Michael Madsen, who, by the way, just passed away, like literally like last week. Michael Madsen and Vinnie Jones. I don't know how familiar you guys are with these American actors, but for us, they're like a big deal. And we had our premiere at the Man's Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. And we had a full house and we had 940 people show up at the after party. And the after party was across the street at the Hollywood Roosevelt, which is a world famous hotel, where the first Oscars was held. And that was the night that shifted everything because we now had our first movie, legitimate, that wasn't a horror movie, that actually went to theaters, and it put us on the map. And what I often tell people is after all those years of all of that hard work and learning and struggle, the tide shifted because up until then, it was the two of us going out there and reaching and grabbing and saying, give me, help me. What can you bring into this thing I got so that I can turn it into something? After that night of the premiere of Tooth and Nail, the reverse started to happen. We started to kind of sort of sit back, and the incoming started coming into us. We weren't going out grabbing it. It was coming to us because now everybody knew who we were. And then we just had to decipher, okay, well, now this is too much. Now, we had to start narrowing things down. So that's how that started. Eventually, Jordan met a girl, decided to get married, moved back to New York, started his own production company. That's when I formed Sumical Films. I think that was in 2012. I might be wrong. And I was like, now what do I do? Now I'm on my own. And lo and behold, the phone rings. And there's a movie starring Gary Oldman that needs money. And I need a job. And someday when this time, I'll tell you that whole story, but I ended up making that one work. And I now had a Gary Oldman starred movie to my credit. It's called Guns, Girls, and Gambling, by the way, with Christian Slater and Dane Cook and Gary. And it worked. It worked. It was a silly movie, dark comedy. Gary Oldman played an Elvis impersonator. We shot it in Utah. We got a 40% a 30% rebate back then. And now I was doing the same thing I'd been doing, except now I was doing it by myself. And that movie led me to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. I'm actually somewhere around 30 right now. I think I just hit 30 or 31. I've got 2 films coming out into theaters here by the end of this year. And I've got 3 films going into production 2026 in the United States. And without getting too far ahead of your question, I am now, you may or may not know, a co-founder and co-owner of a new finance and production company in Australia, Sydney, Australia, called the Greenlight Entertainment Group.
Yeah, we chatted about it the other day.
Yeah, so that we're going live, sort of trade announcements and everything, probably the end of this year, and we will be. Those are for movies that exclusively will be shot in Australia, and we'll be handling financing, production services, post-production, accounting, everything. As long as the film can be shot there. So
congratulations. That's a big achievement.
I'm sorry?
I said congratulations. That's a big achievement.
Thank you. So, I mean, I know that was a long-winded answer to a very short question, but I feel like it's the only way, and it really is just hitting the points. But I tell it because my goal when I meet young and or newer filmmakers is hopefully to inspire them, and but also to really make the point that this is about the long game. It's about playing the long game. And where I live, the culture here is such that, and it's also a generational thing, right? We're in the TikTok generation. People are, more interested sometimes in how many views they have and how many likes they have than anything else. And people are used to quick results, right? Like immediate gratification. Like they put something up on YouTube or they put something up on TikTok, and then they're a sensation and they're making money and the whole world knows who they are. Well, that's great, but that's not the long game. And because I'm kind of old school and I came from that, I continue to play the long game, and because the filmmaking process, especially the financing side, is arduous and can take a very long time to actually get done. And the bigger the budget, the harder that is. Having that wherewithal and the patience and stamina to get through and play that long game is actually a necessity. It's a requirement for anybody who's looking for a quick, hey, I got a script, can I have $2 million? The answer is no. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. To me, it's like you gave yourself a chance, you took a bet on yourself, and you kept the dream alive, and you came all the way to Los Angeles to pursue that dream. And some people, they have an innate ability to connect, to network with people, but someone like me who's afraid of networking, going out and meeting people, I think it's about not saying no. It's about saying yes to everything and having keeping the door open for any opportunity that comes. How would you advise anybody who's starting out as a filmmaker? Because in Pakistan, there are not a lot of opportunities. So how does someone in a situation like this creates opportunities for themselves to bring their voice forward?
Well, it is a people business, right? It's a people business. It's a relationship business. So building relationships is key. It's critical. that was one of those transferable skills I had already had. So that was an easy one for me. I don't know a single thing about the filmmaking world in Pakistan. So I'm coming at this like completely blind, but that may actually be an advantage because I can only tell you what I can tell you based on my experience. And then you can figure out how that applies to you in your country. So, because there's a lot of places around the world where that's true, where there's limited opportunity, right? And of course, there's only one Hollywood. So if you're not living here, and many people who live in the United States and have the same, dream do end up coming here because it makes sense. But it doesn't always, and it doesn't always have to be the case. We're working on co-productions right now with through Greenlight with China and with India and with Germany. So co-pros are pretty common because it brings those two worlds together, right? So it's so funny because I was just had a Zoom with a filmmaker earlier before this. I was telling her I was doing this, and she's doing her movie, and I can't remember. Oh, it's Afghanistan. It's set in Afghanistan, and we were talking about locations because for all intents and purposes, we could shoot that here. I mean, I did a movie called Game of Aces. If you even just watch the trailer, it's on my website. It's supposed to take place in Africa. No, I'm sorry. It's supposed to take place in Egypt, right? The whole movie takes place in Egypt. Well, we shot it here in California, in the desert, right? So, I mean, that's what you can do, right? It's the movie business. You can cheat it all. But she said, oh, maybe we can shoot it in Pakistan. I said, I don't know. I'll talk to the guys and we'll see what happens. So it's about that, right? It's about those co-productions. And building those relationships. One of the reasons why they invited me to be a partner with Greenlight was because of my North American roots and the resources that I can provide to that thing that we're building as an American, right? In the 30 years of relationships. So I always say, when you meet people, right? Particularly if you're at an event, I don't know what kind of events you guys have there around filmmaking, but I think instead of coming at a potential opportunity by saying, oh, if so-and-so's here, I would love to go over and introduce myself. Instead of in your own mind having that the voice say, all right, how can I do this? Start scheming in your mind about what they can do to help you. If you flip that and you start thinking, oh, is there anything I can do to bring value to them, like to what they're up to, right? Because we're all human, right? And when somebody says, so what do? We love to talk about ourselves. Oh, this is what I do, right? But what I try to do, I have a degree in psychology, by the way, doesn't hurt. What I try to do is I try to get more about them, right? Because while I'm doing that, I'm searching in my mind, thinking, how can I help this person? Do I have any resources that I can, with no agenda, by the way? I'm not looking for money. I'm not looking for a job, right? Is there any value I can bring to this individual in any way, shape, or form? That flips the script a lot. Now, in my world, people come to me for money, right? All the time. But sometimes people bring me money, right? And say, they do the opposite, right? They're like, for example, I had one guy many years ago. He's like, I'm a DP and I can't find any work, but I can get an investor to put up $200,000. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can do about that. Why don't we find a film that we both want to work on that could use 200,000? Hello, I can just like step up some of my front door and find 10 of those, right? And the stipulation will be you bring the money, you get that position. And that's how we did it. So it's about, what can you do to help the other people? And I believe my experience has been that the more I, help other people, the more the universe provides me with. And that doesn't have to be a direct connection. That's not that person that has to bring me anything, because you could be that person, but then this person's the one who provides, and it's all good. And maybe I wouldn't have met that person had it not been for you, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But getting involved in like the PGA, so first I want to say, and I'm not going to try to embarrass you here, but if you remember when we had our Zoom call, one of the first things I did was I commended you, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the way we met, because here we are at the London Hotel. I live next to it, and I go to the screenings there, all the time because I can walk. And there you were, and nobody else. And we had that brief little conversation about how crazy we both were for being there that early.
Yeah.
And then I just sat on the sofa to wait to see what was going on. And I started to see that line, and I'm a 68-year-old guy, and I'm like, I don't want to get to the back of the line. And I waited until I saw that you had a moment where you could, because you're busy doing your thing, because now people were flooding in,
Mm-hmm.
including your coworkers and everything, and pulled you aside. And I just was like, look, if there's anything you can do to acknowledge the fact that I was here first when the time comes to see people, I would greatly appreciate it. And that was it. I wasn't asking to be treated special. I was just saying it is what it is. And you could have done a lot of things. And in LA, I would have probably never even, person would have never even, they would have looked at me like I thought I was, something special. And that wasn't it at all. Well, the irony is I was the chair of the PGA events committee for 2 years. And, the fact that you took the time to do whatever you did, when you called my name and invited me over there, and I took my seat and I was waiting for my husband to come over. I was like, that's what makes people successful in this business. Like, that's the kind of interaction, that the intuition and the instinct. I can't teach that. You either have that or you don't have that. And
Mm-hmm.
because you had that, and because you took the initiative to reach out, I offered you my contact information, but I offer a lot of people my contact information. That doesn't mean they ever call me, or I can't tell you how many Uber drivers or screenplay writers or actors, right? I give out my card probably to every Uber ride I ever take, but I might get one phone call every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But when that person calls, I invite them in and I do what I can, right? And so, because the way my beginnings were of having to take risks, jump into the deep end of the pool, blindly sometimes, and hope and pray that I'm doing the right thing, the fact that you were willing to follow through, and look where we are. We're doing this now, right? And where might this take us 6 months from now or a year from now? Who knows? But what I can tell you is that you and I right now are playing our own long game, even though we don't know what that could look like, right? So, a big part of it, but I think even before that, the biggest answer to your question is education. Is really understand, and I'm not just talking about the filmmaking process, right? Because in my world, you could have the best project on the planet, and if you can't fund it, it ain't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't fund it, you can't make it. And if you can't make it, nobody's ever going to see it. So even when I talk to writers, I say to them, I used to teach like a seminar, was before COVID, when you could go out and stand in front of 300 people in an auditorium. Can't do that anymore. You can, but it's not the same. And I used to say to writers in particular, creatives, your project exists for the most part, for most of these people. Your project exists in three places. Here, I don't have one handy, and on your laptop.
Mm-hmm.
For most writers, that's where they have this amazing work, IP work, but nobody knows about it. It's only in their head, it's in their heart, and it's on their laptop. So the first step is moving it into the world so that it's living and breathing in the world. And the way you do that is through the relationships that you build to get people to acknowledge and recognize its existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be me or it could be Steven Spielberg, but somebody, you got to get it to somebody, or otherwise it's going to remain in those three places. And to just take that one step further, there's really only two ways you can go about doing that. And the first way is what I call pitch and sell. And people do a lot of that in LA. People do try to do it with me. And what a pitch and sell is, I got this script, I wrote it, I love it, it's great genre, I think it'll make a lot of money, and I'm going to go pitch it. I'm going to go pitch it to Netflix and to everybody. I can get my hand on a production company. I'm going to go to these events and I'm going to go pitch. Well, I don't believe in that. And the reason I don't believe in that is because, unfortunately, the reality is, when you're pitching your wares that you worked all these years to create as a creator to a company like that or people like that, first of all, you need to copyright all your stuff, because otherwise they can just take your idea and steal it, right? Now, you cannot copyright an idea. So you could give me your idea. I've literally seen people sitting at a restaurant talking next to somebody else. And then those people go, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go make their movie, because they don't have anything but an idea, and I can't copyright an idea. But you can copyright the screenplay, right? So if the screenplay is copywritten, then at least you have some layer of protection. But then what? So now I got a copywritten screenplay. If I'm going to go pitch and sell it, I'm going to pitch and sell it. Somebody's either going to option it or they're going to buy it outright. And either way, I lose, because I created it, I wrote it. And the minute I relinquish that over to that party, it's theirs. Now, they own the creative and they own the money. Now, they're putting up the money to have the movie made. Thank you. That's great. Except it's not mine anymore. And what you often find is that if they do ever go ahead and make that movie, your movie, it's unrecognizable, because they've changed so much of it, you could barely even recognize that it was the thing you wrote in the first place. And so why? Why are you doing that? Like, or unless that's what you want, because there are people here that just write and sell, and they make their living selling screenplays. Well, first of all, that was 10 years ago. People don't even buy screenplays anymore, so forget about that. But 10 years ago, that was a viable solution. The alternative to that is DIY, do it yourself. And if you're going to do it yourself, you got to learn. You got to learn how to put on that producer hat, even if you're a writer or director or whatever you are, or an actor. But you've got to put on that producer hat, and you have to learn how to actually develop the property to make it financeable for an investor to want to put their money into. That's what my company does. We take projects that start off as what I call pitchable, and we make them financeable. Because if you're coming to me for money, and I'm going to go to these people for money for your movie, if your movie's not financeable, I'm not going to bring it. So, and if you're not prepared and willing to go through the steps and actually develop it properly and get it to that place, then you're at the wrong house. You're at the wrong place. You go over there or go pitch and sell and let somebody else do it. But so you either have to partner, that's what the co-production deals are about, with people who do the things you don't want to do, like raise money. You either have to partner with them, or you have to learn how to do it on your own, right? There's those really only two choices. But for me, there's far more satisfaction because in my world, when somebody brings me a piece of property, whether it's a TV show or a feature film, I want it to be what I call unencumbered. Less is more. I don't want a director already attached. I don't want an actor already attached. I don't want all that stuff. I mean, unless you already have all these, but you're not going to, because it's not how this works. You're not going to go get an A-list actor if you don't have any money. You need to get the money, and then you go get the A-list actor. And that's what we do. We actually walk through that process to the point where we can go make an offer to the name actors, because the name actors is what's going to help sell the film, both domestically here in the United States, North America, and internationally, right? So it's a hard deal. It's a lot of work. It takes a long time. Not everybody's cut out for it, but the reward, I just told you, I got 2 films coming into theaters in October. Let me tell you something. Now, we started developing those in 2022, and they're coming out in October 2025. But I can promise you that the day I'm sitting in that theater and that thing shows up on the screen and it says executive producer Franco on it, I'm going to get goosebumps. I'll probably cry a little out of joy and relief. And that satisfaction of having everybody that was involved have to go through everything we had to go through to get to that moment where there's actually a paying audience sitting in the movie theater watching my movie or our movie. That's what it's all about. And that's what gives you the strength and the courage to go do it again. So you only need to do it the first time, because once you do it the first time, you're hooked. You got to have it. It's like a drug. You got to do it every time. You can't not have it. So it's getting the first one off the ground, which is always the most difficult. And that's what we specialize in. We specialize in first-time directors. I had a movie called the Gary Oldman movie. Gary Oldman, that I told you the old story. Gary Oldman, that was a first-time director. But we got Gary Oldman. We convinced him to do the movie with a first-time director. It's really hard to do. I had a movie called The Shift. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but that movie we made here in the United States. It came out on Christmas of 2023, and it has since made I think $14 million, right? Worldwide. Those are success stories, right? But they all started with the reason I bring that up, because that was a first-time director. They all started with a first-time director finding me in the internet somewhere and making a email or a phone call and saying, can you help? And then evaluating the project to make sure that it was something we would be interested in. But then they were the ones who had to be willing to do the heavy lifting and to make the big sacrifices. Not me. That's not me. I'm already doing that. But if it's your movie and you own it and you wrote it and you're directing it, it's your deal. And if you want to protect the ownership of that in the creative, then that's what you do. You work with other people that can help get you to where you want to go. So that at the end of the day, you own you at least have bragging rights. And not only do you have bragging rights, but if you're successful at getting into a film festival and you get some international play, Now you can cut your own deal on the next movie. And like I said earlier, now people start coming to you if you just won Sundance or something.
Mhm.
And things start to get a little bit easier, but you're still going to make your next movie and you're only as good as your last. So I'll leave that there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all your the journey. And you talk in a way that the time passes so quick. We are already an hour in. I had so many questions, but you were answering
Go
pretty
ahead.
much all of them
Okay.
in stories. But this is a good segue into the film festival route. A lot of independent filmmakers go through the film festival route. They create a short film, and eventually that leads on to their first feature. Uh, Being in Pakistan, filmmaking is not a lucrative business. We have a lot of theaters that are filled with Hollywood blockbusters. We don't have a lot of films playing from Pakistan. So our only hope as an independent filmmaker is to make a short film that can go to a festival, that can get some recognition, which leads on to maybe making a feature and maybe coming back to the theaters after it does its festival run. So, as an independent filmmaker in Pakistan, we do have people with a lot of money. How do we get somebody to invest in our films, either in Pakistan or out in the world, to be like, hey, we made something, we made a short film, went to the festival. How do we get them to fund our feature film? And what mistakes do independent filmmakers make early on that you would advise us against?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of questions in there, so I'm going to kind of take them in pieces. All right. I'm going to answer the last one first because it's really key for me.
Mhm.
Because when anybody asks me what's the biggest mistake most filmmakers make, I have only one answer. They go out too soon. Now, what I mean by that is they go out looking to raise the money too soon, meaning just what I said earlier, they're not ready, they're not financeable, they're not prepared, they're not developed, and they're asking for money. They
Mhm.
don't got any of the stuff they need for the investor, but they're asking them anyway. Okay, that's the number one. Or they're going out too soon for talent. So again, using the United States. If I'm going to go try to get Gary Oldman, I'm not going to call Gary Oldman's agent when I don't even have any money. Well, how arrogant do you have to be to think that Gary Oldman is going to read your script when you don't have an offer on the table? And who the hell are you anyway? Pardon my French. Right? When Gary Oldman's got the studio handing him $80 million movies all day, but I think he's going to want to read mine because I'm that special. So, too early, too soon.
Mhm.
Now, you got my wheels turning on the question around the short thing because there's sort of two pieces to that for me. And I'm glad you're recording this because I would actually like a copy. I want to be able to hear this back. Um, so again, in my sphere, right, I absolutely positively encourage filmmakers to make short films. I think it's great way to learn, get the experience. Um, the process of making a $3,000 short film and making a $3 million feature film is the exact same process. It's just that there's way more at stake over here than there is over here, right? Over here, you're going to lose $3,000, and you know you are because it's a short. You can't really sell it, so it's a sacrifice, right? Over here, it's $3 million, and you had better. It's somebody else's money, what we call OPM, other people's money, right? And that OPM needs to get paid back. But not only OPM has to get paid back, but the minimum to break even is what we call a 2x or 2 times budget. So I need to make 6 million on my three just to get even with everybody. And then if I want my investors to really make money and have an upside, I got to make 9, 10, 11, 12 dollars. Like I told you on the shift, it's at 14 million. We made it for 6. Okay. So we just made it, but we made it, right? So, and that started off as a short film because it was a faith-based film, and the first-time director had an in to a significant public figure here in sports in the United States, who was Christian, who was faith oriented, and he sent him the film, the short, and he said, "I'll give you $1 million," which turned out he didn't even do it because the film was way more than that, and that didn't happen. But it got the ball rolling, right? So that's why I'm a fan of, especially first-time, early, younger filmmakers making 1 or 2 shorts. One of my pet peeves, and I see this a lot because I travel all around the world and all around the country, and I go to these film festivals. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was in Florida, and a guy came up, and I watched his short film, and he did the one thing I hate. He said, "What do you think of my movie?" And I got to find that fine line between not hurting anybody's feelings, and being honest. And the truth is, anybody who can actually get a movie made deserves credit and congratulations. But the question is, was it any good, right? And there was nothing wrong with his movie. What was wrong in my mind was what he said after that. He said, "That was my 15th short." I was like, why? Why do you need to make 12 shorts? Why? Like, we get it. Like, if one of the purposes of making a short is to be able to show that you can get through that process and make a decent film and tell a story, and especially if you're the director, right? Then you've done it. You've accomplished the job. And you can do it twice, maybe 3, but you don't need to do 12, right? Because if you're spending here, it would be $5,000 maybe a pop, $5,000 a short, right? So for 10 of them, that's $50,000. You could have taken the 50,000 after the 2 that you made and put that 50 into developing a $2 million feature that you can actually sell and get that film festival acknowledgement or international worldwide distribution deal or a Netflix streaming deal. You can't do that with your 14 shorts, but you could have consolidated all that money and invested it instead in development, because you got to pay to develop a film. And what's cool about the way it works for us is that any money that gets invested in development gets paid back out of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an expense. It's an investment. You're investing money into your own future and your own project that you're going to get back, presuming we're successful and we get the funding for the film. You get the money back. That's a pretty good deal, right? So that's my little pet peeve around shorts, right? Now, I get it. It's very different for you guys. And it brings up a very interesting point. It's different for you guys because of the sort of the landscape of the filmmaking landscape there. And if that is, in fact, the way that works, the film festivals is a great route. I have another pet peeve when I get these pitch decks that people send me, and it's explaining how they're going to market the film. And they say, we're going to bring it to Sundance and Cannes and, in Toronto. Well, you can bring your grandmother to Sundance, and it doesn't mean that she's going to win an award, right? Or even anybody's going to see her, right? Like, you have to get approved, and you have to be in competition. That's what matters. So you don't just bring it to Cannes. You compete in Cannes, and the only way you can compete is you have to compete with everybody else. And they're going to look at 55 million films, and they're going to pick 7. And if you're one of the 7, then good for you. Now you're in Cannes, right? So realistic about what that looks like, and it's probably a little bit of an advantage in your situation because you have a foreign film section, at least at the US ones, a foreign short. And so now you have a smaller group to be, so you're a bigger fish now in that pond, and that you have more likelihood of being exposed and getting to see things. I was on the board of whatever you call it, the board of a group called New Filmmakers LA. I think I told you about it, that you should, right? Well, we do a film festival every single month, and we do a short film festival and a feature, right? But every month is a different category. So we have Middle Eastern, we have African American, we have women, we have gay, we have, you name it, we have a month for it, right? You could literally approach them and say, why don't we have a Pakistani month? Right? I don't know. I'm just saying that there are ways that you can get that stuff out there, right? But what really intrigued me, and I know this is going to sound pretty far-fetched, but just hear me out on it. What has proven to be extraordinarily successful in my life and career in film, I partnered with a company, it's on my website, called Synergetic, which is a distribution company here, California, domestic only, so they only do North America. And we do limited theatrical releases. So a limited theatrical release is, so first I want you to hear in the context of the United States. And then I'll do what I got going on in the back of my head. Limited theatrical release. So we have relationships with the chains. Now, our chains here are like Cinemark and Regal and AMC, right? I presume you have chains there.
Yeah, we do.
And everybody knows who they are, like the top 5, right? What we did was we went in and started negotiating deals. So, for example, the movie I told you about, Game of Aces, that looks like Egypt, but was shot in California. We did that one with Cinemark chain, right? We had 40 theaters in 20 markets, meaning cities. So we're very strategic about it. And when you do that, you make sure, in our case, we have at least 2 theaters. It's 2 theaters in every city. 20 cities, 40 theaters. We're paying for it, and we'll get to that. But I got 2 in LA, I got 2 in New York, and I got 2 in Toronto. So I got what I call the North American Triangle. So I got representation, North American representation, right? Then everywhere in between. I don't know. Miami, Boston, I don't know. We're going to do the research and figure out each film is different, right? You would look like we just did an Asian film. When it came to LA, we had to make sure we were pinpointing the Asian market here. We're not going to go over, to Compton, right? And bring an Asian film there. It doesn't work that way. So we do the research. We there's a method to it. The point is that the movie comes out for 1 week in all 40 theaters at the same time. And because we're partnering with the chain, we're offering what's called a rev share, a revenue share. So as opposed to what we call four wall, which means you rent a theater for a night, bring all your friends and make no money. we're gonna essentially rent 40 theaters in 20 cities for a week. But because we're doing a rev share and we're not just paying X amount of dollars to borrow the tiny little, ugly studio in the back when Star Wars is over here, right? And everybody's going over there. Because it's a rev share, it's a 60-40 rev share, 70-30 rev share. So the theater's getting 30% of every ticket that I sell. and they get 100% of the concessions, which is where they make all the money on the popcorn anyway, right? And I'm the one who's bringing the people, right? I'm going to drive that, right? But because it's rev share, they're going to assist by giving me direct access to their email list because they've got members. They've got thousands, tens of thousands of members who now can see on the website my movie's coming out on Friday. I've got posters in the lobby right next to Brad Pitt and everybody else. This is my movie. Doesn't look any different because I'm in the theater chain. There's 14, it's a 14 complex, right? I'm one of them. And I'm right with, nobody knows the difference. I'll look like a big movie. But the big one, my trailer is going to be seen by everybody that goes into all 14 of those theaters in the Cineplex the week before when they go see the big tentpole blockbuster Spider-Man 18, right? When they're sitting there eating their popcorn, my movie's going to show up as a trailer saying in theaters on Friday, which is going to drive people. I actually have assistance from the actual theater chain because it's in their best interest to fill that theater up as well, right? Because they're getting 30%. Whereas in the old days, I wrote them a check for 10 grand and that's all they got. And they could care less what happened in that theater. They didn't even care. They didn't even pay attention to us. But now we got smart. We started doing the rev share. Now let's follow that through. Okay, so I have a week. Well, what happens during that week? You're the filmmaker. Let's say you're the writer director. It costs about 250,000 US to do this film. Okay, that's the cost, which we build into our budget. So if I got to raise 3 million, I raise 3.2. And by raising 3.2, I'm actually being able to say from now, today, before I even make the movie, when I'm talking about actors and directors, and guess what? We can guarantee you a limited theatrical release in North America because we can, because we're going to buy it. And we already have the money for it in the budget, right? So now that week is happening. You're the filmmaker. One of the things we're going to do with some of that money is we're going to hire a publicist. And the publicist is going to be responsible to go to all of those cities, not all of them, but most of those cities, the major ones. And they're going to connect with the local news and morning and evening shows. And they're going to get you an interview on those shows. So you're sitting there on Tuesday, your movie opens on Friday at a local theater, and you're on Good Morning Texas. You are, right? Talking about your film, again, driving people into the theater. Now, the whole week is over. The goal is to have at least made back the $250,000 that we spent plus 20% for the investors. I don't care if it's a wash, because now people all over North America have seen my movie. The buzz is starting. The social media is buzzing. It's all over Twitter. It's all over everywhere. Everybody knows this thing's out there. Marketing success. But the biggest, really, really, really bottom line reason why I'm doing all of this is because I now can say that I have had a legitimate US/North American theatrical release. It's a legitimate release, which automatically qualifies that now all of those foreign territories around the world that I haven't even begun to try to sell, the value of my movie just went up 25%. So somebody who would have paid me $1 million now needs to give me 1.25. It just the way it is. Because we had a legitimate US theatrical release, it increases the value anywhere else and everywhere else in the world. Even if it was only a $10,000 sale, now it's $12,500. So it will exponentially increase your return, overall return, worldwide. The reason I tell you that is because in theory, you could do the same thing because, and I could help you, because you just said the key. There's a lot of money in Pakistan, right? They're just not spending it on you. And they're not spending it on the things you want them to spend it on, right? But what if you organized a company, or you use this organization, whatever you do, and you created that environment, that you actually cut those deals with those a theater chain. You don't need them all. We do. We have them all because we negotiate one against the other, and right, we leverage our deals. But you could go to 2 or 3 of those chains and say, look, but you'd have to be able to raise the money. You'd have to be able to say, we could do this with like the first 3 movies. So for 3 movies, you need $600,000-$700,000 US, right? But if you were to do that, if you were to get somebody to see the vision that that's what you were going to do, you could do that forever. With every Pakistan movie that you ever make, feature films, forget about the shorts. You don't need to go through all that. All the money you're going to spend on making the shorts going to festivals trying to win, blah, 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 blah. You could just be creating an environment where those theaters will screen your movies because they're going to have this value to them to do it, while at the same time, they're supporting the cause of telling Pakistan stories to Pakistan people, right? Through the eyes of Pakistan filmmakers, right? That is a win-win-win, right? Again, I said I know it's a reach, but this is how I think, right? That there is a way here where you could like take over that whole aspect of the independent film market by simply mirroring what we already proven to be successful here. A lot of work, but I think if you had some, prominent potential investors that are somewhere between philanthropists and art buffs, film buffs, that did have the kind of money, and you said, listen, it's not going to take too much, like $1 million or $2 million or whatever you decide. You'd have to have a business plan. And that this is the plan. And that the truth is, if it doesn't work, then you're not going to spend the money anyway. Like once you go out and try to make those deals with the theater chains, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Or you can do the other way around, try to make the deals with the theater chains first, and then come back to the investors and say, okay, they're all up. Or the best of both worlds is to get an investor to say, this is what we do. I'll give you the money contingent. So I will commit $3 million to this plan of yours. You go get the theaters. When you get the yeses from the theaters, you get my money. It's contingent upon you doing what you say you can do. But I'd rather see you spend a couple of $1 million on putting an infrastructure together to solve the problem than $3 million on one movie that could bomb. And now the investor loses their money and you lose your reputation, and now you got to go back to zero again, right? I'm just saying. That's how my mind works. I hope I didn't mess it up.
No, this is so good. This is amazing that you're saying this, because it's really good to hear it from someone else, because all these thoughts are inside. Because Filmabad is basically doing what you just said. So Diaj and I, we were college mates, and to be very honest, when we graduated, it's just when you graduated film school, you have all these dreams of becoming this next Christopher Nolan, and then you realize we're in Pakistan, right? Like, you have all these crazy ideas, and everywhere you go, you realize that there's nothing, no infrastructure, no pipelines. no distribution companies. There's barely any cinemas here, to be very honest with you. So you realize, and it's just, everything is just hopelessness. And you see a lot of people just saying that, oh, just do ads. I mean, just, make money from ads. You gotta live. And what I decided was like, hey, there needs to be a solution to this, because there's going to be a lot of more people coming up. So the whole problem with, I think that this is my opinion only. I don't want to offend anybody, but the problem with the filmmakers here is that everybody is thinking of themselves, and that's pretty much it. They're not really thinking of the problem at hand. And for some reason people gatekeep, and they're just so afraid of collaborations. I mean, and this is what we're trying to do here with Filmabad, is that we're trying to create that environment. Like, we're trying to train. So what we do is like basically go to schools and teach kids about filmmaking, so that when they maybe like 3 or 4 kids get a spark of what it's like to be on a set, that's those 4 kids getting into the creative economy in the future. So nobody is thinking about the longer game, as you just said. To think about the longer game. Everybody just wants quick money. So the whole idea about this whole community is that, it's like I'm looking at it like 15 years down the lane, like what it's going to be like 15
The
years.
long game. The long game.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard here, but we're trying our best to kind of create that environment and culture of collaborations in the start. And to be very honest, I'm very excited because it's been very successful in a way as well here. Like, let me give you an example. I mean, there's no independent film festival in Pakistan, right, where you can show indie films. And trust me, there's a lot of indie films that are just sitting in people's computers here, or people's laptops or hard drives. Nobody has ever seen them. So what I did was, I mean, with the community and with the help of some people, what we did was we just tried out. We're like, okay, we're just gonna make an independent festival and let's see where that goes. And it was like 10 days. So we came up with the idea, and we did the festival within 10 days. Surprisingly, at that festival, 700 people showed up, and they paid money to watch those student films. And they gathered 700 people, right? Like, that's a big thing. 700 people showed up, and they were all like young people. They pay money to go to a place to watch student shorts. So we were like really surprised, because people were telling us, they're like, okay, dude, you're gonna get like 100 people maximum showing up, like, and specifically because Islamabad, like the capital here, where we live, and where this community is based, it's very like slow, and like there's not a lot of any activities going on. Like, people make fun of the city with the whole, they sleep early and all that. But it was really surprising for us as well. So it kind of gave us more of like a boost, that like, people really want to see new films, and people really want to see different stories, and maybe there's people really interested in independent films. And yeah,
What is the population of Pakistan?
Yes, more than 200 million.
200 million?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. And is it like, are you guys in like made centralized like in a main city, or is it really spread out?
No, it's a very spread out.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's like major cities.
Wow. It's been an amazing session. I think you did a masterclass in indie filmmaking and distribution, and we are very thankful for your presence, both me, Sadan, and the Filmabad community. So again, thank you so much, Franco. It was a pleasure speaking with you and learning from you.
Thank
and
you.
We are looking forward to having more sessions with you, and
Yep.
and possibly bringing you to Pakistan.
I would love it. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this opportunity. You guys awesome. I love this, as I said, I enjoy it. So I'm available to do it again in the future. And like I said, anybody who just goes to filmmakerfilm.com, filmmakerfilms.com, if you haven't already, you should, because you get to see not just some of my past stuff, but what I'm working on right now in the development section, which actually still needs a little bit of an update. And there's access to all kinds of other information on there, including the consultation, and I do a private finance course. There's all kinds of interesting stuff on there. So I invite you guys to take a look at filmmakerfilms.com. And I was going to say I'm pretty sure some of the podcasts and things I've done over the years, there's links. So you can see some of my speaking engagements and all that other stuff. It's all on the website. So that's one-stop shop for you guys. So thank you. This has been really fun for me. I love it. You can tell I'm a big ham. I never wanted to be an actor, but I just love I love this because I'm so passionate about it, and you guys clearly are as well. And I hope I gave you some insight. I hope I gave you some mind-blowing stuff. And I always tell people that when I hang up these calls, this is how I'll know if I was successful today, is that if anyone or all of you are lying in bed tonight and you can't sleep, and because the brain's going crazy, and you're cursing me out, going, damn Franco. I'm up. It's 4:00 in the morning and I'm still awake thinking about whatever he said, That's when I know I've done my job. So I want you guys to report back and let me know if you I hope you don't sleep tonight. That's all I'm saying. I hope you make up for it on the next night so that you level up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Franco.
Check in with me anytime, and I'll make myself available for you guys.